it wasn't very long ago when, rather than go over all the statistics, I'll just say that Michigan was at the bottom of every list you'd want to be at the top of. And we're at the top of every list you'd rather be at the bottom of. Right? That's where we stood for a long time. And there was a strategy at that point, which was very much focused on trying to desperately cling to the past, as though the past would somehow come back and become our future, instead of embracing the future for what it can be. And in the transition that we've seen happen here in our state over the course of the last few years has really been led by people, innovators that simply had a better opportunity to succeed. Now, I remember when I first started getting involved in politics, that one thing I noticed, a lot of Republicans were running on an issue, generally speaking, in favor of more jobs, right? I saw commercials from Democrats too, and they were in favor of jobs also, right? But so everybody's in favor of them, but if you want more, you gotta understand, where do they come from? Like, where do our jobs come from? Sometimes we can be oversimplistic about it. So, well, in Michigan we have the automotive industry. In Grand Rapids we have a lot of furniture manufacturing, and there's this discussion or oversimplification of it. But let's think about it in a different way. If you were to look back at the last 2 decades before the one that we're in, so the 1990s and the 2000s, what you'll find is that in the 1990s we had a time of great economic expansion in Michigan, a lot of job growth. In the 2000s we had a lot of contraction. In other words, we lost a lot of jobs in that decade. Now, my friends who are Republicans will say, well, naturally, that's because in the 1990s we had John Engler, in the 2000s we had Jennifer Granholm. My friends who are Democrats would say, no, that's not it at all. It's because we had Bill Clinton in the 1990s and George Bush in the 2000s. But regardless of your political leanings, and I hope you're Republican, but regardless of your political leanings, we can all agree that in the 1990s, it was a time of great economic and job growth. In the 2000s, we had a lot of contraction. And what you'll find, if you look at 3 different categories of jobs, you'll find that in the 1990s, we had jobs from startups. We had some new jobs from startups. We actually lost jobs from relocations. In other words, we had more relocations out than we had relocations in to Michigan. The majority of our job growth came from the expansion of companies that were already here. All right, somebody's here and they just got bigger. The majority of our job growth in the 1990s. In the 2000s, a time of economic contraction, we had a lot more go out of business than go into business in that decade. We also had a lot more leave than come in. Our only job growth in the 1990s, our only job growth came from companies that were here the whole time. Companies that were here and got bigger. And yet, all of the economic development work was focused around, or has been focused around, how do we convince somebody from someplace else in the world to come in here and save us? Rather than saying, how can we support the people that are already here, give them the very best playing field to do the very best that they can. We don't have to bribe them to come in. They've already decided to make a life here. They've already made their home here. They've already decided this is the place they want to be and the place that they want to invest. How do we give them the best playing field so that they can be as successful as they possibly can be? And that was the strategy that we came in to employ. And agriculture, I think, is a great example of, and I want to broaden this discussion beyond agriculture in just a moment to, and I hope that you start thinking of all of you that are involved in agriculture, think of it in bigger terms than that. Think of it as the food industry. I know there's other parts of agriculture that are not food, but it's the idea there's a value-added process that happens. So you got the commodity on the front end of it, and we do a lot of that in Michigan and do a really good job of very competitive and productive here. But the more the value-added process that we can capture, the more jobs that are created around food industry. And this is where we've seen a lot of exciting development over the course of the last few years. Now, when we went in, we changed our tax policy. We said, look, we just want to have a simple, fair, and efficient tax system. No more picking winners and losers and saying, well, this industry is our favorite one, and this one's high-tech and cool, and this one's old, so we don't really like that one anymore. The idea is that no matter what you want to do, we just want the tax system to work well for you, to be competitive, to to be simple to comply with. That was the goal. So we got rid of the Michigan business tax and implemented the corporate income tax, which made us, when we started out, we were I want to be positive about this, we were 49th best in the nation. Right, but now we're a top 10 state according to the Tax Foundation, a leap to best practice. That's the type of step that we've made, all built around creating an environment for success around the people that are already here. Not how can we pay other people to come in, how can we make it work better for people that are already here. Personal property tax reform was the same. Now, being in agriculture, you might say, well, does that really affect me? Because agricultural equipment is not subject to personal property tax. But when you start talking about the capturing of the value added, in other words, we want more food processing here. We want that to be done here. And this phase out of personal property tax will make a really big difference in where we rank in terms of the expansion of food processing here in the state of Michigan. There's a lot of value added that we can still capture here, and it's low-hanging fruit that we're well positioned to go after, and something I'm very excited about. The other thing that has happened very organically, and a lot of times the best things happen organically. It's very difficult for government to kind of pick what's the next trend is in economic terms. That's why what we want to do is just say, no matter what it is you're interested in, this is going to be a good place to try it. But in one area where it's just kind of sprung up so organically and has turned into a real powerhouse is the intersection of tourism and agriculture. This has been one of the best success stories you'll find anywhere in the nation, whether you're talking about the things that happen around orchards and food production and wineries, and how many people have been on the tours up in Traverse City to go along the wineries. They do this thing where they do wine and macaroni and cheese, and Julie and I did that before. She liked wine, I like macaroni and cheese, and so it works out really well. But it was hard to get in. There were so many people that had really looked at that as, where did they want to spend their long weekend? Where do they want to take their tourism dollars? And it's right here close to home, and it was tied directly in with agriculture. And this is a really exciting development, not just for the obvious economic benefits of it, but when you think about the sustainability of agriculture in this country and in this state, the more that people have interactions, which is why you have the activities in the farm. When I was a state rep, it was called Breakfast on the Farm. Do you call it something else now? But the idea that you invite people in to really learn about it and be a part of it. But this intersection with tourism has really created a great opportunity to support sustainability and a better understanding among the general population, the general public about what agriculture is really about, and to really understand its importance and how it works, and it's not something to be afraid of. And then would take it one step further and say the more exposure that we have, the better chance that we have in people wanting to go into the field. And when I say go into the field, I should think and go into the profession, right? It might be in the field, it might be other things too, but to go into a profession that is tied to food production. That this is Michigan's sweet spot. It's the area that, whether our economy is up or our economy is down over the course of my entire lifetime, and that Bob, you said, well, that's not that long, but I'm 38 now. Over my entire lifetime, agriculture has been on a great trend line that keeps on going up, even when other things are going down. And there's been tough times in agriculture, I understand that, but it's the idea that there's an amazing resilience in the idea of food, right? You need food in good times and bad, so it makes sense. But it's one of our strongest exports to the rest of the world today too. And so Michigan's standing keeps on rising. It's a big part of it. Our comeback, though, is touching all different types of areas. Every single section of our private sector has added jobs in the last 4.5 years. Every single one. Well, there is one exception. The private sector has all added jobs. The government sector has actually contracted jobs, and over that time period. But when you think about all the different sectors in the Michigan economy, the fact that all of them have had a net increase in jobs over the course of that time period, something really special is happening here, and we have reason to be optimistic about the future and be bullish about the future, and to look at it and say, the strategy of reducing regulations, and we have reduced regulations in our state. We've gotten rid of a couple thousand of them. We've gotten rid of about 1,500 forms that people used to have to fill out. And you know, big corporations don't really care about the regulations as much because they have like teams of compliance lawyers and like departments to deal with these sorts of things. But small businesses, you know, the owner of the company is the chief compliance officer, and the salesperson, and the accountant, and the copy machine jam fixer. I mean, whatever has to be done is what the owner of the company, and so every single second that they spend dealing with state government, filling out forms and regulations, all that sort of thing is productive time that is taken away from building their business. And that's why we've had such an intense focus. And this is an ongoing process. It should never end. This constant evaluation, reevaluation, which of these rules, administrative rules and statutory regulations can we just get rid of? And we are down now a couple thousand compared to where we started, and we're just getting started. We've got a long way to go in this area, but the tax reform, the regulatory reforms, but labor reforms that have happened as well that have helped put us back on the map in terms of being a player in investment decisions around the state. And now we've gotten to a point, whether I'm as far north as you can get without getting wet, or as far south as you can get without going to Indiana or Ohio, I hear a similar complaint, which is I can't find enough people to do the jobs that I have open right now from employers. Now that's a good problem to have compared to what it was in 2009. Right before, it's just no jobs. Now we have employers saying, listen, I got jobs, they got open jobs, I'm having a hard time finding people that have skills to fill these jobs. But then it's taken another step where now we're hearing more like, I don't care about the skills, just give me somebody who passed a drug test and will show up for work on time. And so when we look at this opportunity, like where we're at today, when we know that we have about 80,000, that's upwards about 90,000 jobs on mitalent.org, open jobs right now in Michigan, empty open jobs right in Michigan. Yet we also have about 5.3% unemployment. Now that's a lot better than 15% like it was in 2009, but still too high. And as we look at how do we connect that better, I want to make a case for you today, and I'll spend the rest of my time in this area to think about, to the extent that the people here in this room are in a position to make an employment decision. I want you to think about a talent pool that maybe you've never thought of, and that's a person with a disability. What we find is that there's extreme high levels of unemployment for people with disabilities. When I say disabilities, it's across the board. It's particularly bad for people that have developmental disabilities. And there's a stigma that goes along with it saying, well, but I don't know about, can this person do the job? I mean, there's a big question because Michigan's history, just like the rest of the nation and the rest of the world, is really, really ugly with segregation of people with disabilities. So we don't have a lot of experience with people with disabilities in the workplace. And so there's this assumption that people can't do the job. And so if we were to change that mindset and give a person with a disability a chance to prove themselves, that they can compete in competitive employment situations, you'll find that there's an untapped labor pool that can really fill the needs that are out there today. You take a person who wants to work, who wants to be a part of the economy, that has just never been given a chance in the past. There's an enthusiasm. The employers that are pioneers in this area, employers like Walgreens or Dow or Meijer, the employers that are pioneers in this area will say that they get such enthusiasm and hard work and ingenuity from this group of people that they find a way to make the most of this opportunity that nobody else would give them. And maybe it's time that we all check and evaluate the way that we see things, the way that we see people. Do we see the disability first, or do you see the potential in the person? Now, you heard earlier, I want to share with you an alternative biography of myself. You heard a nice one when I came up. It said things like Harvard and elected and you know, good things, generally good things, right? And they were all true, right? These were all good things about me that were true, that are in my official biography. And when I come up to speak, people will say the nice things. I want to share some things with you that are not as nice. And these things are all true, by the way. Brian Calley is a substandard swimmer. Upon hearing about a woman who swam the Straits of Mackinac, he was heard making the remark that if he tried that, the constitutional duties of the lieutenant governor would most certainly fall to the Secretary of State. That's no surprise given his all-around lack of athletic ability in high school. Given his small stature, he was relegated to performing arts, which is much more suited for a person of his physical limitations. He is short, probably shorter than he looked to you on TV. He has been able to finish marathons, although he looked like he was going to keel over at the end of the Boston Marathon. It's considered an accomplishment given his limited capacity. His start in politics was predictably rough, as you might expect for a short, athletically challenged person. He lost his first political race for 9th grade student council president to a girl that he had just taken to homecoming dance. That one still stings, to tell you the truth about it. Politically challenged life continued in 2008 when he lost a House Republican caucus leadership race. He had difficulty speaking correctly as a child. He had to go to speech therapy for years because he could not properly say simple words like animal, instead of saying aminal. Now I remember this too. They kept on saying, say animal. I say aminal. What? And I just couldn't hear the difference. The math skills were thought to be strong in high school, but later required a tutor in his freshman calculus class at Michigan State. Somehow he still graduated. It is unclear how many of his limitations will be passed on to his 3 children. Now, what if that was the biography that was read before I came up here? I want you to think about, like, what would you think would, so I did it, and it's kind of funny, but wouldn't you think of it as kind of rude, right? Like, why is Carl saying bad things about him? That doesn't make any sense. Welcome to the life of a person with a disability. The weakness, the thing that they're not good at, is their title of their name, the way they get introduced, the thing that you know most about them. It is the label they are required to wear their entire life. Now, do you think, now I want everybody in the room to just for a moment think about the thing that you're worst at. Think about the thing that you would be embarrassed for other people to know about. And what if that was the one thing that everybody let off with when they introduced you? Do you think you'd get a fair shake at life? Do you think you'd even have drive or feel like you had permission to go chase your dreams if there was this intense focus on the cannot instead of a desire to understand and build around strengths? So when I say that we need to start changing our mindset, and if you guys know my past, I'm pro-life. I look at this as an extension of my pro-life beliefs. It doesn't stop at birth, right? That there is value in every single human life, and while we have this this drive toward awareness and even acceptance, where life's change is when we get to inclusion, where we just decide that we're going to make a place, that we're going to take intentional steps to make sure that the world works well for everybody, and that everybody has strengths and everybody has weaknesses. And so why don't we build around the strengths instead of obsessing over the weakness? And how much further will we move ahead when everybody has a shot? Everybody has an opportunity to do the sort of thing that they want to do with their life. I've dedicated about half of my public policy work to this area, whether it's in special education, disability employment, the mental health system, to try and make sure that the world works well for everybody, for every single person. And it will only work if we have a collective mindset change about what is possible. And I hate to break it to you, but every single person in this room is only temporarily abled. Right? If you live long enough, your reward will be that you will face a disability. Like this is this is something that we all really have in common. And so why not start looking at other people around us today the way that we hope people look at us sometime in the future if we face a disability? And it's going to make our community stronger. So I want to thank you for your contribution for this comeback that is happening in Michigan. It has really been an exciting place to serve here in Michigan. The comeback, when I love to share statistics, and I could give you a whole bunch of them about the numbers of the comeback, but really what's more exciting than that are the individual stories behind those numbers. And this room is full of those stories. And people that have made opportunity happen in our communities, have made great things happen that have changed the direction of the community, but changed lives of people in those communities. And so for our part, we want to support you as much as we can. The Farm Bureau has been one of our closest partners, maybe our closest partner in terms of the administration with all the different groups that we work with. Farm Bureau has been such a close partner the entire time in helping us to make sure that we're making the very best policy decisions that we can make, and that will result in more opportunity, more success and more security for our people. And it wouldn't be possible without you. So thank you so much for your help and your partnership in that, and I'll look forward to working with you over the course of the coming years on it.